It is definitely Christmas season. No matter what your beliefs are, you can tell. Just drive up and down the streets. Last night we drove around through our neighborhood and saw all the lights, and we're fortunate enough to have one of those guys that just goes nuts, and he's got the lights that dance to the music, and you turn your radio to your car radio to a certain station, and it's all synchronized. It's wonderful. He kind of scared us a couple of years ago. He had a stroke, and we thought that might be the end of. I mean, aside from being worried about him, we thought that might be the end of these decorations, but they're bigger and better than they were before the strokes. It just goes to prove when you put your mind to it, you can do it. Christmas is about many, many different things, and it depends on what your beliefs are on what those meanings are to you. But the common themes are the giving and receiving. It seems to be pretty common in whatever religion or belief system you have. Even if you have no religious beliefs about it, the gift giving seems to play a part. So last week I mentioned what I think the gifts of Christmas are, what we were given when Jesus was born, and that is the gift of love, the gift of gratitude, the gift of peace, the gift of oneness with God. To me, that's the meaning of the season. Now, I'll admit I get caught up in the commercialism of it all sometimes. It's a lot of fun to go out there and go a little crazy. But when I slow down and I really tune back in, those are the four things that really stand out. And I mentioned it last week, so this week I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to kind of take you where I go with it and see how it resonates with you. Love. Before Christ came, there was love. There was love for family. If you had a son or a daughter, of course you loved them. There's something about that. Christ came and taught us how to love outside of the norm. He taught us how to expand love, how to share it with people that we normally wouldn't share it with. Jesus' love, the love that he taught, was not okay, as long as this is true for you, and as long as you believe this way, and as long as you're not an illegal alien trying to get into my country, and as long as you're not gay, and as long... He didn't teach all of that exception stuff. He taught love everyone. There was no exception to it. Pick up the Bible, read any story about him meeting somebody. It was pure love. I looked up love in the dictionary. And I love doing this. I love just looking up words because I want to know what Webster has to say. And Webster's definition, while it's really long, while it's really long, kind of boiled down to two things: an intense affection for another person based on personal or familial ties, and a strong affection for or attachment to another person based on regard or shared experiences or interests. Jesus took it way farther than that. So we don't have to walk through the mall while we're doing our Christmas shopping and look for people with similar interests before we can go say, I love you. We can just simply look at them. We can see the divine part of them no matter what. No matter what they're buying, no matter what they're doing, no matter who they're holding hands with. We can see the divine. And that's a shared love. That's the oneness, that's the connection that we have with everyone on this planet, because that's the divine. So love is bigger because of the gift that we have this season. Love doesn't stop in our home. It doesn't stop in our in this community. It keeps going. And we share that in so many different ways. The kind word. We stopped somewhere on Thanksgiving and grabbed a soda somewhere, and it's like, I felt so bad for these people having to work. So it was just express that thank you with that huge smile. And I didn't have to say I love you. I didn't have to say thank you so much for being here. It's just, you let them know. They feel it. And we can do that every single day, and it's not just for this season. We expand the love. So I challenge you to look at how you can expand the love that you give and the love that you receive. Sure. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. It is. I think that's a great story. And anytime we slow down and allow, mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. You could have shut them down pretty quick, but you got the gift because you allowed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's what love is about. That's where we can expand. That's where we can feel more, receive more, and give more. Because that was a two-way street there. That was both of you and they were. Yeah. So give yourself the gift that the birth of Jesus gave the world. That's an expanded version of love. That's an elevated version of love. And it's not just all giving, folks. It's about receiving it as well. Last week was all about extreme self-care. Receive as well. Okay. The second gift that we talked about last week was peace. And again, I went to Webster. What does Webster have to say about peace? And I covered it up. Webster says, peace is the absence of war and other hostilities, an agreement or treaty to end hostilities, freedom from quarrels and disagreement. And here's where Webster started getting the knack of what peace was all about. Harmonious relationships. Sure, peace is all of those things. It's the absence of war. It's the absence of hostilities. Peace is so much more. And this, to me, is one of the other gifts that Jesus' birth gave this earth. It's more than the cute little glittery signs that we see at this time of year. We see the lights on the roof that say peace, and that's pretty cool, and it's a lot of fun to look at, but peace is so much deeper. Through love, we find more peace. Peace is an attitude. Peace is an aura around us. Peace is a gift that we give ourselves, and it's a gift that we give others just by letting that peace just flow from us. Peace definitely is the absence of war, but it's also the absence of limiting thoughts. It's the absence of self-doubt. It's the absence of unworthiness. It's just a well-being. It's a calm that is within your heart, within your soul. That is another one of the gifts of this season. One of the greatest examples of peace that I have ever seen, read about, I should say, I wasn't there personally, was Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist and a neurologist. He lived back in World War II, was in the Jewish or the Nazi concentration camps. He was of Jewish descent, and so he got pulled in there like everybody else. He survived, and along with him, many other people survived because of a peace that he found. He didn't wait on his surroundings to create peace. He found it within himself. This is what Jesus brought to this earth through the Christ mind. It is a peace within. Frankel found that, and because of that, it just exuded from him. It just flowed from him, and people around him picked up on it. With all of this chaos and this panic and this hatred and this anger, this sadness, this fear, people around him were starting to calm and find peace and actually build love. Now, Frankel got out of these camps along with many of the people around him when people inside that same camp that weren't part of his circle were being killed off. They were going to the gas chambers and all of the mass murders that the Nazis were doing. Frankel and his people, through this peace, found it. Same people that were killing others were looking at this group saying, we're going to leave them alone. Frankel got out of those camps and he started his own psychology practice. He actually created a form of psychology called logotherapy, which you've got young, and I forgot the other guy's name. I cannot believe I forgot his name. Yeah. Okay, the other one. And then Frankel. So there's basically three really strong types of Freud. Thank you. I knew it started with an F, and it was like, okay, Freud and then Frankel. Logotherapy is basically finding that your answers are within. You know, you don't have to rely on what the world creates around you to figure out who you are. It's all within, and it goes much deeper than that. But Frankel was able to survive the camps, bring people with him, and he started his own practice. And one of the first things he did was hire a Nazi psychologist to work with him. And people thought that was crazy. People ridiculed him. They just lashed out at him. Even the psychologist, the German psychologist, said, there's no way I could have done that if I would have been, if the roles were reversed. No way. Well, Frankel stuck by it. He said, no. This guy did some things that I don't necessarily agree with, but the person himself is not that bad. Uh-huh.
I've always thought it was
Excuse me.
significant that the last words that Jesus said to his disciples, my peace I leave with you.
Yeah. Yep. Peace is huge. Peace is what allowed Jesus to do what he did, and in the way that he did it. That was the thing. He could have gone fighting and screaming and still got, gone through all of the stuff there at the end and the cross and everything, but he didn't. He went through it peacefully. And he exhibited love, compassion, oneness, never gave up. So peace is the second gift that I see this time of year. Peace is an aura, it's an attitude, it's an experience. It's not just something we go look for, it's something that we create within us. It's something that we find within us and then we share. Okay? So give yourself the gift of peace. It's already been given to you, you just have to accept it and allow it and open up to it and become aware of it. The third gift is gratitude, and we talk a lot about gratitude, so I'm not going to go too deep into that today, but if you think about it, how many times did Jesus go into prayer, taught us about prayer, and that prayer was simply thank you? Okay? Jesus lived his life with gratitude, and all of these build on each other. You can't have one without the other. He couldn't stop and talk at the well with the prostitute without love, without a peace about himself, without gratitude for everything he'd been given and everything that she had brought to him. And it was an experience, and he was grateful for the whole experience. We can learn from that. The fourth gift is the biggest. And again, without any of the other three, you can't have this one. Without this one, you can't have the other three. And that is oneness with God. You know, until that baby was born into that Christ mind and show the world what it was like to live that way. God was some being out here dictating rules, telling the world every step that they needed to take in order to be okay. Jesus came in and he said, I and my Father are one. And because of this, I don't have to have this big set of rules. I can live with love, peace, gratitude. I am connected. I live from this Christ mind as a divine being. Love, peace, gratitude, oneness. I didn't read the last two from Webster, but they're in here. I've got them marked. What happens when we live in that Christ mind, when we acknowledge our oneness with God? All four of those gifts go deeper and deeper, and they expand, and they're bigger, and they're better, and we get to experience it. It's not a gift that we're given and we put it on a shelf and admire it. These are gifts that we're given to live, to experience. And the coolest thing about all four of them, they do not stop on December 26th. We get to keep them going. And there is your challenge. Right now it's pretty easy to recognize those things and keep them going. The challenge is December 26th through next December, well, whenever Thanksgiving is, next November, whatever that is. That gap is where the challenge comes in. And so I want to just challenge you right now to start thinking and start feeling and start experiencing ways to have these gifts and continue them all year long. Build them so that next year when we come back in here, we say, man, this has been an awesome year. These gifts stayed with us. We grew, we expanded, and that's kind of what our community is going to do, because we're going to base our growth and our actions on those gifts. So next year when we get to this beautiful season, we can say, yeah, you know, it didn't stop. We kept going. And look what we have now. So just take a moment and think about that. How are you going to expand it for yourself? How are you going to feel it for yourself?